And welcome back to the First and Goal podcast. My name is Lewis, and next to me, as always, is my beautiful co-host, Laraib. And we are super excited to break down all of the games from this huge week of the NFL schedule. All of the bye weeks are over with. We are now officially heading into playoff territory. For some teams, it's playoff games every week if you want to get in. For some teams, you're starting to figure out that they need to start looking at some of the quarterbacks at the top of the draft. But we are here to cover all 15 games this weekend coming up. It's going to be a huge episode. So get your popcorn, get whatever you like to drink. I know Laraib likes his Diet Mountain Dew. And we covered the Thursday Night Football game, Seahawks 49ers, in our last episode. We also covered a lot of playoff implications for some of these AFC playoff teams. So go check that one out if you haven't seen it yet. But Laraib, anything to say before we hop into these?
Well, Lewis, only 4 weeks left in the playoff or in the regular season. That means a lot for, playoff teams like you mentioned, but it also means a lot for our predictions. We're tied up right now with 4 weeks left to go. The season could potentially end in a tie, Lewis, but I'm hoping not. And it's going to start for me right here once again in week 15, Lewis. To start off, we have a couple Saturday games this week. We have the Indianapolis Colts visiting the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota had a bad loss last week, but they're favored at home by -4, Lewis. What are you thinking about this game?
I think this is a more disrespectful line than last week. I mean, the Colts have been awful. They had that good game against the Raiders. It seems like everyone has a great surprise game against the Raiders. And ever since then, they have not been that great. Now traveling to Minnesota, who, like you said last week, they can afford to lose that Lions game. They're going to make the playoffs. Well, you got to start winning some of these games. And this game at home, technically a short week. Colts did just come off a bye week, so they will have the rest advantage. But I don't think it's going to matter in this matchup. I think that the Vikings will expose this Colts passing defense. And now I don't think the Colts quite have the weapons on the outside to expose this lackluster Minnesota pass defense, which has been very bad, the worst in the NFL so far this season. It's going to be a higher scoring game, but I think the Vikings pull out in the win. Underrated performance from Dalvin Cook, in my opinion, this week.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think this Colts offense is just not going to be able to keep up with the Vikings, even though coming off the bye. Guys like Michael Pittman, we expected him to have a breakout season this year, but he just has not, hit that ceiling yet. And Jonathan Taylor's regressed a lot from last year, especially with the offensive line, just not playing as well as we're used to seeing. And so I think just the most important matchup in this game, Lewis, is going to be Stephon Gilmore against Justin Jefferson. It'll be great to see them on Saturday going head-to-head in prime time. But besides that, like you mentioned, big game from Dalvin Cook. Some other superstars might come through like Adam Thielen and KJ Osborne for this Vikings team. But I think they get it done at home, Lewis, and they lock up their division and they win 28-17 at home.
Yep, I got to agree with you. I have the Vikings win this game 31-21. Vikings win it in a pretty convincing fashion. The Colts start looking at the draft. But let's move on to our next team, Laraib. We have the Baltimore Ravens traveling to the Browns in a divisional matchup. Cleveland favored by 3 in this matchup, Laraib. With the uncertainty at quarterback with the Ravens, no Lamar. Tyler Huntley is listed as doubtful for this game, which 90% of the time means they're not playing. And you have probably Anthony Brown starting as your, or I think I got his name right. I don't even know his name, as the starting quarterback for the Ravens. The Ravens have the better roster, or at least defensively, can that get it done against this Browns team?
I think not in this one. Like you mentioned, it's probably going to be rookie Anthony Brown getting the start in this one against the Browns. And I'm agreeing with you. This is going to be a defensive battle. But on one side, I can trust Nick Chubb and Deshaun Watson if he can break out of that shell of himself and have some sort of typical game. We saw him massaging himself on the sideline. Maybe he's loosening up those joints, getting ready to get back in some action. And so I think if he can just be a little bit of his former self like he was on the Texans and start really ripping it down the field to Amari Cooper, I think he can get it done against a Ravens team with Anthony Brown, a quarterback, really not putting up that many points. So I like the Browns 20-17. Maybe we see a little Deshaun Watson magic in this one.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to gauge this Browns offense because you said it. I mean, it's kind of just seeing when, because we know Deshaun has the talent. It's just when is he going to get out of his own way and start gelling with this offense, kind of getting back to what we know he can be. And I mean, it's a very hard task against this Ravens defense, which has really been carrying the way for the Ravens to be sitting at 9-4, even with Lamar missing games. And I think I'm gonna disagree with you, Rob. I think I like the Ravens in this ball game. Their defense has been playing so amazing. J.K. Dobbins just got activated off IR, so he is expected to play. And we know this Browns run defense is not that good whatsoever. And this Ravens team, I mean, they have the culture, they know where they're trying to get to, and they just find ways to win. They find ways to win with Tyler Huntley. They find ways to win with Lamar. Missing pieces, without missing pieces. I think this is just a good organization against a bad organization. I don't think Deshaun Watson can figure out this Ravens defense. I say multiple turnovers. This game is going to be ugly. Ravens win it 13-10, Laraib. But
Wow.
let's move on to our next game. We have the Dolphins traveling to the Bills, another divisional matchup. Sorry to cut you off there.
No,
but,
you're good.
Did you have any other thoughts on that game before we move on?
No. I was just saying, the Ravens, facing, last week Kenny Pickett got hurt. They're up against Mitch Trubisky most of the game, but in this one, I think Deshaun Watson, let's see what he can do. But you're right. Let's move on to another game. This is another good one. We have the Miami Dolphins at the Buffalo Bills, Lewis. And now this is the Dolphins' third straight road game, Lewis. And now they're facing this Bills team, 20-degree weather. And we were saying on the podcast on Tuesday, it's going to be really, really tough for this Dolphins team to get anything going in this cold weather. And so how do you feel this game is going to go?
The biggest question for me is what is Tyreek Hill going to look like in this matchup? Because he was banged up at the end of that Chargers game last week. And if he can't play in this one or is limited in this type of cold game, then I have really big worries about this Dolphins offense. You're down 2 tackles. Jalen Waddle has also been dealing with injury problems. And Tua has been dealing with some minor injury problems as well, along with not really playing that great. And then you go on the road, and it's expected to be snowy weather in Buffalo. Neither of these teams really run the ball that well, but the Bills are just kind of built more for this type of weather. And we've seen this Dolphins defense really not look very impressive in 2 straight weeks against, a little bit above average offenses. And that's what you're facing with the Bills. So I think Bills have clear matchups all across the board. I think they're going to be able to run the ball in this game, which is going to be huge for them. And Josh Allen is a cold weather quarterback. He's going to get a lot done with his legs. He's just going to make the plays that need to be made, and he will will the Bills to a win. I think they need this game. They can't get swept by the Dolphins. Bills are going to win this game 31 to Dolphins 17.
Yeah, Lewis, I think you alluded to it just now. When these two teams matched up earlier in the season, the Dolphins were able to eke out a win late in that one with a great comeback. But in this one, I think the Bills at home, they just run away with it. Josh Allen gets himself back into the MVP conversation a little bit with a big win on Saturday night. I'm going to agree with you. I like the Bills 31-20, Lewis. But let's move on to Sunday football. Here we go. We have the Atlanta Falcons playing your New Orleans Saints. The Saints favored at home -4, Lewis. Now, Desmond Ridder will be starting quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons this one. What do you think the Saints can do in this one to, disrupt his first start?
I don't know. It's hard for me to say because it's always these random players, gimmicks, first starts. I remember as a kid in 2012 watching in stadium when RG3 ripped apart our defense in his first start of that season. I expect Desmond Ridder to not have much trouble. We have been playing good defense recently, and coming off a bye. I am kind of concerned about the chemistry with this Falcons team. It seemed like when Marcus Mariota was told that he wouldn't be the starter anymore, he just quit. He just left the team. So that's something to look at. Kind of strange, in my opinion. I will be taking the Saints in this game. It's Falcons week. You have pride. This is a game that, the season's over, but this is a game that's always, circled in every. Shut up. It's over. This is a game that's circled on every Saints fan calendar every year. Falcons hate week. In the dome, we beat them last time. Let's sweep these dirty birds. And you know what? Sweeping the Falcons makes a bad season pretty, reasonable in my opinion. I think we get it done. I'm worried about the running game, though. Alvin Kamara has not looked himself. Mark Ingram just got injured. We pick up Eno Benjamin off the waivers. He's probably going to have a pretty big role in the Saints offense, but I just like our team better. I like our receivers on the outside, and this Falcons offense has not been looking impressive the past few weeks. I think the Saints get it done at home.
Well, Lewis, I do agree with you. Roster for roster, player for player, the New Orleans Saints have the better team, but they also have Dennis Allen as their head coach. And so he'll find a way to lose this game for you guys, no matter what the situation is, Lewis. And so I think, this Falcons team really has a great identity, Lewis, in rushing the ball with Cordero Patterson, and all those other guys they have in the backfield. And even with Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder, he's a little mobile in the pocket. And with him and Drake London, I think they can get it done on the road, Lewis. And you were saying, Saints fans always have this game circled on their calendar, but I'm sure all those Falcons fans and all those Falcons players also have this game circled because this is one of the biggest rivalries in all of football, Lewis. And so I think the Falcons get up for this one, and Younghoe Koo gets the upset, kicks the game-winning field goal in this one, and the Falcons upset the Saints 20-17.
Well, if it's a close game, you're probably right. We're going to find a way to lose it. But I think the Saints put this one away. I think it's, we get to a good lead, make it comfortable, just get the Falcons down because they're not known for coming back. They're known for blowing the lead. But if we're down, we're definitely not coming back. So give me the Saints in this one. I'm going to go 28-20. I just think, Saints, a little bit of rejuvenation, get some happiness back in the stadium because the Pelicans are stealing all of it. But that's for another podcast. Well, let's move on, Laraib, to our next noon game. We have the Philadelphia Eagles traveling to Chicago to face the Bears. Eagles favored by 9 on the road. Any chance for Chicago in this one coming off a bye, Laraib?
Well, if not Jalen Hurts, our boy Justin Fields can put on a great performance. He was banged up a little bit before the bye week, Lewis, but hopefully he'll be good to go for this one. I know he had a little bit of shoulder injury, but if he can have just a great rushing attack against this Eagles defense and keeps Jalen Hurts off the field, maybe they can lose by less than 10, Lewis. But I think more importantly, Jalen Hurts just gets to push further and further into the MVP lead right now. I think he's leading currently for MVP odds at the moment with Patrick Mahomes right behind him. And so I think he just puts on another great performance. This Eagles team, every single week, they get it done no matter what, to the ground, to the air. The defense has been balling out. And I think they win an easy one on the road. I like the Eagles 31-17.
Yeah, it's a really bad matchup for this for the Chicago Bears offense against this Eagles defense, who's been playing very well against the run ever since Jordan Davis came back. They picked up Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph, who have been complete run stoppers. And they see a mobile quarterback in practice every day in Jalen Hurts. So seeing Justin Fields won't be anything new to these guys. I am worried about the middle of this Eagles defense, the linebacking core, if they can hold up against, just keeping Justin Fields in the pocket, not letting him escape, because he's had some very explosive runs this year to keep them in games. I think they're up for the task, and they get their 13th win of the season, furthering their lead on the NFC. I got the Eagles in this one. I'm going to go 28 to Bears 13.
All right, Lewis. Now let's move on to a really, really big game for both these teams here. A lot of playoff implications for this one. We have the Detroit Lions, who are white hot, facing the New York Jets, and the line for this game is even, Lewis. And now, the Mike White dealing with a little bit of injury in this one, Lewis. Quinnen Williams, arguably the Jets' best defensive player, he's dealing with some injuries. He's questionable for this game. And now you're facing this Lions team who's hungry, Lewis, and entering New York. Who are you picking in this one?
So I was really hoping you would take the lead on this one, because I think I'm going against you on this one based on how you've been talking. But for your information, Dan Campbell has won one road game in his entire coaching career with the Detroit Lions so far. And this is a game you're going to New York. This Detroit team has been playing in a field or in a dome all season long, and amazing at home. This offense has put up amazing numbers, as we saw last week against the Vikings. But on the road, they're a completely different offense. And with this Jets pass rush, and yes, Quinnen Williams' loss is huge, but they still have a lot of great players, great corners. This defense will make it living hell for Jared Goff. And this is a desperate Jets team that needs a win. I think they can be able to run the ball on this Lions front, who has been playing good defense, but in the outdoors in MetLife. House of horrors for a lot of teams traveling there, especially if you've been inside for a while. I like the Jets in this ball game, Laraib. I think they make it a tough game, a physical game, and yes, the Lions can run the ball, but against this Jets defense, which has been amazing against the run all season, I don't think that they're going to be that effective. And then Jared Goff on all these third and longs in the outdoors. Can you see it, Laraib? Can you see the frustration on his face, the fear as he's throwing it up? And Sauce Gardner and former Seahawk DJ Reed are locking down Amon-Ra and Jameson Williams. I'm going with the Jets in this ball game.
And Lewis, like you correctly predicted, I'm leaning the other way. I like the Lions. I've seen what Jared Goff can do outdoors when he was with the Rams coming into Seattle, and he can get it done outdoors, Lewis. He's gotten it done at Lumen Field. And so I can trust in him. And, this Jets team, like I said earlier, Mike White, if he's banged up and he has to leave this game, Lewis, your boy Zach Wilson is going in to relieve him of his duties. And so something like that happening, I'm not trusting Zach Wilson in that case. And so I like this Lions team on the road. They've been playing really, really well. Besides that, Bills lost, Lewis, and they need this one if they want to get into that playoff spot. And so I like the Lions 23-20 on the road.
And that's hilarious because I like the Jets 23-20 at home. They keep their playoff hopes alive. Sorry, I'm chewing on some ice right now. But they keep their playoff hopes alive in this AFC, which has become so much more competitive. And this is a win they need on their schedule. And yes, the Lions need it too. This is going to be a very fun noon game, Laraib. I really hope this is going to be like top of the national networks. But looking at some of the other games, I'm less optimistic. Speaking of, let's move on to our next game. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to Carolina to face the white-hot Carolina Panthers. Both teams at 5-8. Carolina favored by 3 at home. Laura, I'm just going to ask you, between these two teams, who has a better chance of reaching the postseason?
Oh, it's most definitely the Panthers. They're still in contention to win their division. And they're having a late season playoff push, Lewis. And when they're facing the Steelers team, I know their defense is really, really good. But last week you saw Kenny Pickett go out and Mitch Trubisky go in, and he blew that game against the Ravens, having 4 or 5 trips to the red zone and coming out with 7 points, which was just ridiculous to see. And now you're facing a Panthers team at home, which has been astounding on the ground game with Donta Foreman and Chuba Hubbard. I think they can get it done against the Steelers offense, who can't score any points, Lewis. And so I like the Panthers at home, and a very big game for them to win their division. I like the Panthers 24-16.
Now, I don't like putting you in this position, Laraib, but this is a game I'm genuinely 50-50 on. And there's one variable in my mind that will flip this game in either direction, and it's Kenny Pickett. When he's been playing, he's been a solid starter, and he's been very good for this offense. And when he went out, like you said, Mitch Trubisky came in and just messed the entire game up, and they lost to the Ravens. But if he plays this Sunday, I like the Steelers to get a win on the road because this defense has been very good against the run, and Sam Darnold hasn't played a defense like this since he's came back into the starting fold. And, TJ Watt breathing down his neck, forcing havoc. And then I think I like the Steelers against this Panthers defense, which is not that great against the run or the pass. So they can get things going with Kenny Pickett. Then I like the Steelers to win. But what I'm going to do to you, and I feel bad about this, if Kenny Pickett doesn't play, I'm going with the Panthers. So there's my caveat. Will you allow me to do this? Is that fair?
I will allow you to do this if I'm allowed to do something for the same exact thing for another game.
That's fair. Hey, that's fair. We're all fair around here. So that's my stipulation. If Kenny Pickett plays in this ball game, it will be Steelers 17, Panthers 16. And if Kenny Pickett does not play, it'll be Panthers 17, Steelers 16. So that is just flip the score, flip the 7-6, and Pickett. I want him to play. You know what? I'd like that outcome, but I think this Panthers team will feast on Mitch Trubisky if he is the starting quarterback, Laraib.
Right. So well, that's going to be a great game to watch, Lewis. A lot of playoff
No,
implications for
well.
this one, too. But another big game that we have is the Dallas Cowboys going to Jacksonville to play Jaguars. Dallas -4 on the road, Lewis. And now they had a game last week against the Texans where they had to have a 98-yard drive to finish the game to score the game-winning touchdown. And now they're facing this Jaguars team who just demolished the Titans last week. But, Lewis, the thing what we said about the Jaguars all season long has been their inconsistencies. Trevor Lawrence plays good one game, he plays terrible the other game. The rushing attack is awesome one game, they get shut down another game. And now this Cowboys defense was the difference in that game against the Texans, Lewis, and they were the reason they won that game. And now you're going into Jacksonville facing Trevor Lawrence. Just with the inconsistencies, I think they get pressure on him all game long, and the Cowboys come out with the victory in the end.
You bring up a good point. I think the Cowboys are just the most polarizing franchise in the entire NFL, to where they can get a win, yes, against a Texans team they should have destroyed. But because of that, and you saw the Jaguars blow a team out. The Jaguars team, to your credit, super inconsistent all season. They have barely like a plus point differential in the season, despite having a negative record and 5-8, 3 games under. But they blow a team out and then they lose a close one or choke a game and then they come back and win. It's just been such a wild season for Jaguars fans. And this game, you might think of it, if the Texans gave them a fight, well, the Jaguars must be able to. No. And honestly, I think 4 points is too low. I think the Cowboys, there's something to be said about playing your worst game in the season and still winning. And the Jaguars, that's probably one of their best games of the season, blowing out a divisional rival like that. So when those two things mix, a team is coming off their worst game, a team is coming off their best game, the team who played their worst game usually comes out with more effort and energy trying to prove something. And I think the Cowboys do that in this game. Plus, I just like the matchups a lot. This Cowboys defensive front did not get a sack against the Texans last week. They will get some in Jacksonville this week. Saxonville, as some still may remember it. And they will make it the new Saxonville. I like the Cowboys in this one. I'm going to go Cowboys 31, or I'm going to go Cowboys 30, Jaguars 20.
Yep, Lewis, I agree with everything you said. It's going to be Saxonville City over there in Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence pressure in his face, couple bad turnovers, and the Cowboys get a win and move to 11-3. So I like the Cowboys 28-17 on the road, Lewis. But let's move on to another barn burner. We have the Kansas City Chiefs coming to Houston to play the Texans. Kansas City -14 in this one, Lewis. And this Texans team has been really, really close in some of these games, Lewis, all season long, but they just haven't been able to get a win. And now, like you said earlier, a lot of these teams just looking for a quarterback in the draft, and I think that's what the Texans are doing right now in this game. They're just not going to put any effort into it. I think Chiefs steamroll them, and maybe Patrick Mahomes gets back to the front of the MVP race.
I disagree with Laraib, not with the outcome, but I don't think it's going to be a steamroll. We saw this Texas team really show a lot of life, and bringing in Jeff Driscoll as this change of pace, kind of Taysom Hill-esque quarterback who's a power runner, but he can also throw the ball decently well to these backup guys. I think they're going to make this game close, but the thing is, the Chiefs rarely get to play indoors, and when they do, they put up 38 points per game. This game will be indoors in Houston. I think it's going to be a total track meet. Now, I do want to give the Titans respect because they deserve it. And I think this Chiefs defense has not been playing well. So I think this game's going to be higher scoring for both teams. But I do have the Chiefs winning 38-25 in this ball game, Laraib. But let's move on to our first 3 o'clock game of the weekend. We have the Arizona Cardinals traveling to Denver to face the Broncos. Two teams without their alleged franchise quarterbacks in both instances. No Kyler Murray, no Russell Wilson in this ball game. Denver is favored by 3 at home. I'm going to pick them. I'm going to pick the Broncos. They have a better defense. I just think this Cardinals offense with Colt McCoy, they're fun, but I'm not a really big fan. I think this Denver defense has a lot to prove after last week, a game that they showed some life. And, Jerry Jeudy coming out party maybe. He had a decent game. Maybe they can build on to that. I like the Broncos in this matchup. I'm going to go Broncos 16, the Cardinals 13.
Well, Lewis, I know I said I had a stipulation for you. about your quarterback change? Well, I'm going to call it in for this game, Lewis. Now, Russell Wilson is questionable for this game, so he might play. So if Russell Wilson plays, I really like the Broncos. Like you mentioned, him and Jerry Jeudy had 3 touchdowns in this one. But if if it's Colt McCoy versus Brett Rippon, I really like Colt McCoy. I know the Broncos defense, Lewis, is really, really solid. But Colt McCoy has started some games for the Cardinals this season. He has a lot more rapport with those guys. Him and D-Hop and James Conner have played a lot more games together. And so I think I can trust them a little bit more on the road if I need to. So if Russell Wilson plays, I'll pick the Broncos 17-16. And if Brett Rippon plays, I'll be picking the Cardinals 17-16.
All right, that's fair. Hey, I mean, I thought you were going to say if Russell Wilson plays, I'm picking the Cardinals. But yeah, I guess that's where you're going on this one. I don't blame you. I have the inclination that Russell Wilson's probably not going to play. And you do bring up a good point that Colt McCoy has been pretty good this season, which I am thinking about. But I just think this Broncos defense is too good at this point in the season, and the Cardinals really haven't been able to do much on offense. So I do like the Broncos at home in that matchup, especially Cardinals coming off a short week kind of scares me. So let's move on to our next game, Laraib. We have the New England Patriots traveling to Las Vegas to face the Raiders. This is another pick'em game. And because I don't really know where I'm going with this one yet, I want you to start out with this one. Both teams are still kind of fighting for the playoffs. Right now, the Patriots are the current 7th seed. So that would make you think they need to win this game more, right? Or where are you leaning in this one?
Well, Lewis, I'm definitely leaning more New England in this one. We saw them on Monday night going head-to-head with the Cardinals, and that game was really tight at halftime, Lewis. But something in Mac Jones, he might have just erupted on Matt Patricia at halftime in the locker room because they came out running in the second half, put up just an outstanding performance in the second half against the Cardinals, and really just ran away with that game. And so I can trust them a little bit more. Their defense is playing really, really good. And now you're facing a Raiders squad, which has blown so many games this season, Lewis. All the air has been taken out of that locker room. You know, you blow games to Baker Mayfield, who hasn't even seen the playbook for more than 3 days, which is crazy. And now you're at home, you know, all your guys, you all are basically out of the playoffs. And now you're facing a Patriots team, like you said, was battling for that 7th seed. I think Mac Jones really, really learned something in that Monday night game, got some rapport with some guys, found some good offensive plays. And I think they can get it done on the road against a Raiders team who's been reeling. And so I like the Patriots 27-24 in a close game, which the Raiders will somehow find a way to lose it though.
I got to agree with you. And this is a close game, in my opinion. Like I'm having a tough time deciding who I want to go with, but I do agree with you. If there's any coach who knows how this Josh McDaniels offense works, it's going to be his mentor for the past, however many years they've been together, in Bill Belichick, who's going to know everything that they want to do. And this Patriots defense, to their credit, they've been very solid this year. So I think they'll be able to stop the run. Now, it does seem like the Raiders might be getting some reinforcements on the way, as Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow have both been activated off the IR. So they could return in this ball game. And those are 2 huge targets for this Raiders offense, which would get that much more explosive. But I think, the Patriots did unlock something in that second half. Granted, it was against the Cardinals, but now you're playing the Raiders. So what's the difference? Both teams are kind of mirror images of each other. I like the Patriots in this one. And I think this is a huge game for them, and maybe being a sneaky playoff team that no one wants to watch. So I like the Patriots. I'm going to go a little bit lower scoring. I'm going to go Patriots 20 to Raiders 17. It's a close one either way. And I can't change my mind. That's my pick. So let's move on, Laraib. We have the Tennessee Titans traveling to Los Angeles to face the Chargers. I think this is going to be a very exciting game. Chargers favored by 3 at home. We talked about what this could potentially mean for the Chargers and the Titans playoff hopes this season. And what are the matchups that you are looking for specifically in this ball game?
Well, Lewis, I love my boy Justin Herbert, and that's the way I'm leaning. That Chargers passing attack facing up against the Titans secondary, which has been exposed week after week. Jalen Hurts and the Eagles threw all over him. And then last week, Trevor Lawrence had another amazing game with 300 yards passing against him. And now you're facing Justin Herbert with all his guys back at home in SoFi with all the Chargers fans going crazy over there. I think that the Chargers and Justin Herbert win a high scoring game that's really, really important for their playoff implications. I'm sure you'll get to why the Titans will run all over this team with Derrick Henry.
Well, you said it yourself, Laraib. The Titans, I mean, we're talking about Derrick Henry here, who has been having a kind of disappointing season, at least not to his caliber. Now, I'm sure a lot of other running backs would love to have a season like Derrick Henry's having right now, but to his standards, it's kind of a down year. But what a way to get back than to play the freaking Los Angeles Chargers and this running defense, which has been lackluster all season. And obviously the Dolphins couldn't expose it because they don't have much of a running game themselves last week in LA. But I think this Titans team, I'm very close to picking them, Laraib. I'm just so concerned about this Titans secondary, which has been so beat up, so lackluster. But I think if you can keep Justin Herbert off the field, control the clock, get Derrick Henry going downhill, just beating people up. This Chargers defense did impress me with their effort they showed against the Dolphins last week, but kind of a short week for the Chargers, Sunday night game. They're staying in LA. Man, this game should be a pick 'em in my opinion, but you know what? I'm going to stick with my gut feeling, and that is the Chargers. I think Justin Herbert exposes this pass defense for the Titans yet again. It's hard to count out a coach like Mike Vrabel, who's been such a stud as a coach for this team, just keeping them in games. But I'm going with my gut. I'm going with the Chargers. Chargers 31 to Titans 28. It's a mismatch for those corners, especially with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen back playing as well as they have been. So, but let's move on now to another banger of a game, or at least kind of hope it is. Comparing it to what we thought was going to be a good game last week with the Buccaneers, we have the Cincinnati Bengals traveling to Tampa to face the Bucs. Cincy favored by 3.5 in this game, Laraib. After what we saw from the Bucs last week, this 3.5 seemed kind of low to you?
It really does, Lewis. Disappointing for the Bucs last week. I would say disappointing entire season for this Bucs team, Lewis. Tom Brady has just been missing guys. The play calling, the coaching has been awful all season long. They really haven't been able to do anything on the ground. Rushing the ball, offensive line is not what it was. With a bunch of guys leaving and retiring, and they've had a really bad season. Now you're facing this Bengals team at the wrong time, Lewis. Just white hot Bengals going in there to Tampa Bay, and I think they win this game by double digits, Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. What did the Buccaneers show us last week? I know, granted, this game is in Tampa, but if that's your only defense and why this game's going to be competitive, it's a pretty bad defense because the Bengals have been running the ball extremely well, and this Buccaneers offense has been awful this whole season. And we've been praising this Bengals defense, how they've been kind of turning around their season, and it's been that side of the ball, just getting after the quarterback, great sound play on the back end. I don't think the Bucs are going to do much on offense and just keep giving Joe Burrow bites of the apple to get the ball to his potent receivers against a pretty underwhelming Buccaneers defense, which had Brock Purdy dial him up last week. So I agree with you. This is a game that feels more double-digit blowout than it does close Tom Brady miracle game. Now, he can always pull a rabbit out of the hat. He's the GOAT. He's Tom Brady. But I don't think this Bengals team is as undisciplined as some of the other teams that have faced the Buccaneers earlier this season. Not naming names, but you know who I'm talking about. So I think the Bengals get it done on the road. They're going to win. It's going to be a little lower scoring, but I'm going to say 28 to Buccaneers 16.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you, Lewis. The Bengals, white hot, Joe Burrow with all those guys back, Joe Mixon in this one. I think they just dominate this Bucs team. And even when Tom Brady has the ball late, Lewis, he can't score 21. You can't score 21 points on one drive. And so I like the Bengals 27-16 on the road, Lewis. But let's move on to Sunday Night Football. We have the New York Football Giants going to Landover to play the Washington Commanders. Now, Washington -4.5, Lewis. They've had over 3 weeks to get ready for this game the Commanders have, because they played the Giants already. Then they had a bye week, and now they play them again, Lewis. Meanwhile, this Giants team has gotten beat up by the Eagles. They tied with the Commanders, and they got just trounced by the Eagles. Now they play this Commanders team again, who might have Chase Young back in this one, Lewis. I think clearly the Commanders are able to dominate this game after just being prepared for this game and fully rested.
I think you're wrong. Let me paint the picture for you. This is a Giants team that has been
Awful.
stepped on, written off before they even stepped on the field this season. Brian Daboll came in. He said, I know these men in this room can make a change. And he led this team to a 7-2 record. And since then, 0-3-1. And they faced this Commanders team 2 weeks ago and put up the best effort they had. And it wasn't enough. They tied. And then, like you said, they went and got their asses kicked in Philadelphia. And now we come back to the site of the slaughter. This is the make or break game for this Giants squad. Saquon Barkley, he's been, injured. He's been cast away. Daniel Jones cast away. These defensive players, Jabril Peppers, Dexter Lawrence, they've all been afterthoughts. Not in this game. This is the game they step up. They become real life Giants, and they take over. They take command against Taylor Heineke, and they force their way into the NFC playoffs with a statement win in Sunday Night Football. No ties here. Give me the New York Football Giants 23 to Commanders 17.
Well, Lewis, as much as the Giants need this game, the Commanders need it just as much as them since they're both 7-5-1. But I will say this Giants team since week 8, Lewis, has been 1-4-1. And their one win has been against the lowly Houston Texans in a game that they almost lost at the end. And now Saquon Barkley has not looked like his former self. Daniel Jones, he's limited the turnovers, but the offense has been lackluster. The defense has been lackluster. And now you're facing a Commanders team on the road on Sunday Night Football who's been rested and well prepared, Lewis. I just don't think they can get it done. And I know you've had your agenda against this Commanders team ever since Carson Wentz went out, but my boy Taylor Heineke has went in there and, where have you heard the name Carson Wentz on any news outlet since he went out? No, because he's hot garbage, Lewis. And Taylor Heineke is that guy, and he gets the ball to the playmakers, and he's really good, and he dominates, and he's got a charisma, he's got swagger, and he gets it done at home against the Giants team, which has been reeling since week 8. I like the Commanders 27-24 at home.
No chance. My New York Football Giants will step up and show the world why they belong in the playoffs. This is not a fluke season. Brian Daboll is him. Ron Rivera, get your ass home. Giants take command in this ball game. If Carson Wentz was playing, I would not be saying this. Let's move on to our Monday Night Football game. We have the Los Angeles Rams traveling to Green Bay to face the Packers. Rams, after pulling off one of the craziest upsets in my life, with the whole Baker Mayfield story, traveling to Lambeau. It's going to be cold. It's going to be the tundra, 24 degrees. Green Bay favored by 7. I think the Mayfield magic takes a bit of a break here in Lambeau. It's just too much of an ask for this banged up Rams team to go into Lambeau in the cold and beat this Packers team, which has really been, disappointing. Obviously, they're not going to make the playoffs this season. But this is a game you need, and this is a game you got to beat Baker Mayfield at home, right? To get some, Aaron Jones masterclass wouldn't hurt my fantasy team. So certainly not. So let's go Pack, go, right?
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Coming off a bye, Christian Watson has been reeling and dealing the past couple of weeks. Romeo Doubs is coming back for this one to see those two rookie wide receivers ball out, match up against Jalen Ramsey, aka Burnt Toast out there. Mm-hmm. I think they can get it done in the cold weather. If you can trust anybody in the cold, Lewis, it's going to be Aaron Rodgers and this Green Bay Packers. And I think Baker Mayfield, like you said, comes back down to earth a little bit in this one. I like the Packers 28-23 on Monday Night Football.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's picks. Let's go ahead before we head out and give our locks, upsets, and best bets of the week. I will start with my lock of the week, and that is the Minnesota Vikings getting 4 points at home against the Colts. I just think there's no way that the Colts can go into Minnesota and beat this team, which got humiliated. People are calling them frauds. They're not supposed to belong here. They've gotten lucky so far this season. This is statement game potential for this Viking squad, and I think they get it done at home.
Good pick, Lewis. And I like the Cincinnati Bengals on the road, facing Tom Brady, only 3.5, Lewis. But I think that line is just way, way, way too low. Tom Brady, It looks like Father Time has finally caught up to them, and they've caught this Bengals team at the wrong time. So I like Cincinnati as my lock this week.
All right, let's move on to our upsets. My upset, you may have guessed it. It's unfortunate that it has to be an upset, but they're going to take command. They're going to win. They're going to step up like the Giants they are. The New York Football Giants will beat the Commanders on the road to have a almost secured playoff spot in the NFC.
All right, good pick, good pick. And for my upset, Lewis, I'm picking the Atlanta Falcons. Like we mentioned, this is a big historic rival between these two teams. Desmond Ridder, hopefully he comes in there and gives that offense a little bit of hope, at least through the passing attack, and gets something done on the ground with the rushing attack. Cordell Patterson, masterclass incoming as the Saints and Falcons split on their season games, Lewis.
All right, let's hop into our best bets of the week. My best bet is the Jets money line against the Lions. It's a pick 'em. It's good value. A game in New York that they need. I like it. I don't like this Lions team at home. So give me the New York Football Jets. And that is my best bet.
And my best bet of the week is going to be Cincinnati minus 3.5, Lewis. Like I mentioned earlier, I feel like this line is just a little too small against the Cincinnati team who's been on fire. Now they're facing Tom Brady, who's slowed down. Just bad all-around Tampa Bay team. I really like them to blow out the Bucs.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this week's picks. Go ahead and always, check us out. All of our links are in the socials below if you want to see what we're up to when we're posting, everything like that. And if you want to look at our last episode, we broke down all of our AFC playoff scenarios, who we think's getting in, dark horses, contenders, and all of that. And our Thursday Night Football, obviously, like we mentioned in the beginning, is also on that episode as well. So, Laraib, anything else you want to say before we head out?
Yeah, just a quick happy birthday shout out to my boy Lucas Colgrove turning
happy birthday
number 22. If you made it this far and you send me a picture or you text me an emoji of a cupcake, I will Venmo Lucas $1.
It doesn't work.
And this is the First and Goal podcast signing off.
Peace.